Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. Okay, this week we are talking about being in a frenzy. I was having a conversation with a client, coaching client, and her energy that day just was very frenzied. I didn't have a better word for it. She was telling me stories and it was like very energetic, right? And of course, our stories are always emotional. I always want you to tell me emotional stories. Just FYI, please tell me emotional stories. But in her storytelling, she was sort of jumping from one story to another, and I'd ask questions and she'd start to answer, but then it would remind me of, and she'd go on another tangent. And by the way, I've never met a tangent I didn't love. So I respect a good tangent, but in her energy, I just found that there was a way that it was difficult for her to be present. And when I hear that, like if you and I talk, if I hear that in a voice, I'm definitely going to call it out, because we need to be, as competitors, and even as like dog moms and dads, right? We need to be able to be fully present. Our dogs are masters at this. So we constantly have these wonderful teachers at our feet, on our lap, all of the time, reminding us to just be here in the present moment, right? As I record this, one of my dogs is just quietly over there chewing on a Benebone, happy as a clam. Is he thinking about the future? No. Is he thinking about the past? No. He's not thinking about anything other than, oh, this bone is really chewy, or whatever he's thinking. I don't actually know. He could be doing trigonometry and I'm completely wrong. But anyway, we do have these constant reminders, but in competition, it is vital that we are able to access that skill. And I do believe it is a skill because it requires practice. And actually, maybe it's more like a practice, like in terms of how yoga and Buddhists kind of talk about a practice, because we never probably get we're never probably masters of it, right? We're always getting better. We're always refining it. It's sort of, unfortunately, I guess we never cross it off the list. All right. Maybe that's the maddening thing about it. All right. But I want today to make you aware, because I think for most of us, and I know I was guilty of this at a time in my life, we don't catch ourselves doing it because it's so normal. And I'm actually re-listening to a book. It's a Joe Dispenza book, and it's reminding me of the fact that we can get addicted to energy or to feelings even though we don't like them, which is a wild concept to me. But anyone who's ever struggled with addiction, even, cigarette addiction or addiction to sugar, or, massive addictions out there, and there's so many to choose from, by the way, that you don't want to do it. I don't want to be addicted to sugar, but I find all kinds of excuses to cave in and have the cupcake, the extra cookie, the whatever, because I love it. And I will tell myself all kinds of things to be able to keep doing the thing I know is not good for me, because in the end, I enjoy it. Okay. So in a weird way, our neurological system, our nervous system especially, becomes addicted to or very used to the feelings of stress or being frenetic or, always on the move, or being we call it multitasking, or I'm only happy if I'm productive, or, I'm always in motion, or things like that. Those things, we sort of look for that because that's where we get the hit, the dopamine hit, the feedback, the response. And so we don't know another way. And so without that, I mean, like any habit, we have to like break one habit. But more importantly, it's easier if we replace it with a better habit, right? We can't just say, I mean, I use this analogy all the time. We can't just say, puppy, no, don't chew on the shoe. We have to actually take the shoe away, but give them something to replace it with. Be like, you can't chew on that shoe because I really like it, but here's this great Benebone I just spent $20 on. Please chew this, right? And we replace it. So we need to replace our thoughts. We need to replace our habits, and we need to start like incorporating into our rituals and into our daily lives the habit of being still, or the habit of focusing, maybe even using there's some really great apps of like focusing that like won't let you use your phone for however long you set the timer, right? And you have to like focus on one task. And for a while, maybe you can only do 10 minutes or 5 minutes. That's okay. But we have to start making focus and calm and present a skill or a practice that we are really devoted to, because the opposite isn't good. Okay. The opposite is you're spinning, you're buzzing, you've got racing thoughts, you feel slightly chaotic, you feel pulled in a million different directions, and you feel like you've got to chase all the directions at once, or, you're half in the past, you're half in the future, never quite here in the moment. And you might even have accepted over the years that it's just your personality. Right? I'm just busy. I'm excitable. I talk fast. But that scattered frenetic energy has a huge impact on your focus, your timing, and how our dogs read us. And I say us because I'm in this game too. I'm like a recovering frenzied person. Okay. So we need to, it's not just a character flaw. It's not just personality. It's a nervous system thing. And I'm obsessed with nervous system and energy, because I watch people walk into the ring not in a very like calm, present, focused way. And I watch how it affects their runs. And so many times when I talk to handlers, we don't improve for ourselves, but we will improve for our dogs. Okay. So if you won't look at this for yourself because you're like, I'm fine, I don't care, it doesn't bother me. Look at it do it for your performance. Do it for your dogs. Do it so that you can be better in the ring, or you can be even a better, more focused student, right? In my last episode and last newsletter, I talked about being obsessed about something this month, and really like devoting time to pick one thing and really like dive in and master it. It's that way with focus or being present. Matter of fact, you could be obsessed about being present. And I know that's my obsession this month. And that's why I'm kind of re-listening to some books and some things like that to kind of just go deeper, right? To level up again on this topic. Okay. So if you're wondering like what frenetic energy looks like, you might recognize how it feels, or you might be so used to that feeling that you don't. So, the first, thing we have to start with is awareness, of course. So I'm going to paint like a little pretend picture, right? This is not based on anybody, just some generic picture. Okay. So you're walking into the ring, your brain is still like looping through your last run. Okay. Have you ever thought of that? You're walking back into the ring, but you can't stop thinking about the previous run. You might be talking a little too fast, or you might be talking to other people, even if you're like 4 or 5 dogs out, or maybe you're rechecking things. You're like not sure if you packed something, forgot something, but like you're in line to walk in the ring, however many dogs out you are, and your mind is on your bag or on your car or on your, run from before, or did I bring enough jackpots, or I wonder where the closest grocery store is. And so you might not even be nervous, right? You might not even be nervous. You might just be walking in the ring like another, Sunday, and you're feeling fine, but your brain is doing all of these other gymnastics. So you tell yourself, I'm just excited, which might be true also, but underneath it, your body is trying to keep up with a brain that is already 3 steps ahead. All right. And I'm going to read that again because I did write this down. Your body is trying to keep up with your brain that is 3 steps ahead. So that's not excitement. That's adrenaline. And I always say when you have all this amped up extra energy, if you don't find an outlet for it or a way to manage it, which is what we're talking about today, your energy will find an outlet. You will lose focus in the ring. You will forget where you are for a minute. You will make a dumb mistake, quote, air quotes. You will make a mistake you normally wouldn't make. You will do other things and it will show up in other ways. And it's because your body is like in mid fight or flight, right? It's running on this adrenaline. And so your mind is like scanning for danger because, that's how cavemen of us, we were raised. Or it's scanning for something to fix, to control or prevent. But it makes it impossible to be fully present with your dog in the exact moment you're in. Okay? It's all distracting you. And you might say, well, yeah, my dog and I are, so good. We're on autopilot and that's good for you. But like, how would it feel? Like, it's kind of the equivalent, like you go out to a lunch with somebody, with a friend, and you're sitting across the table and they're constantly on their phone. Okay. And you're like, don't even need to be, your phone's down. Like, it's not like you're both on your phone or you're both like, sharing memes at the table or whatever. But you're not on your phone and your friend is on their phone the whole time. And they might even be like having emotional reactions, right? Smirk, laugh, mad, sad, whatever. But they're on their phone. How do you feel in that moment? Right? Like, do you even need me? You could go disconnect. I could run around this restaurant, with my hair on fire. You wouldn't notice. You're the person with the phone and your dog is the person not on the phone. Okay? Because your dog is sitting there at lunch, kind of, sort of, fully present, not on their phone, looking at you like, okay, let's talk, let's catch up. And you're like, ha ha ha, meme, phone, whatever, ding ding, whatever. Okay? That's what your dog is feeling. Okay? So I just really want that to sink in. Again, if you won't change for yourself, you might change for your dog. Okay? So we get in this state for a whole lot of reasons. All right? Too many commitments. Sure. We're rushing, we're over preparing, we're socially overloaded, we're too caffeinated, not caffeinated enough. We're fearing making mistakes. We might be nervous. We're thinking about the outcome. Or we're like striving for perfectionism, right? A lot of reasons, more than that, okay? But I don't have all day to tell you all the reasons, okay? And it could be past experiences, right? And so we're constantly, when you think about your thoughts at any given moment, a lot of us, they're either in the past or they're in the future, okay? You're thinking about something that happened and you might be worried it might happen again in the future, right? So sometimes you're even pinging back and forth, past to future, past to future, past to future. How often are you spending time in the exact present moment, right? Exactly where you are, toes in shoes, leash in hand, staring longingly at your dog, being, I am so lucky. Thank you for playing this game with me. Really prepared, really listening to them, noticing when they're getting curious, when they're asking you questions, when they're unsure, when they want more information. Okay? So in our dog sports, this is an extra common sort of state to be in because we care so much. So I don't want to I'm not shaking a stick at you or like, oh, bad handler. No, this is normal. And it comes out of caring. It comes out of this being our passion. It comes out of wanting so much for the outcomes and everything to go perfectly and everything to be great and for us to keep leveling up and for us not to drag our past mistakes into our next run. Like, it comes from caring. We're trained, we've driven hours, we spent all this money, we want to do well, but that intensity can turn on us and turn into pressure to do well. And then our bodies sort of brace for impact, because our bodies are wired that pressure, fear, I need to turn on all those fear responses that we've talked so much about. So when our nervous system doesn't feel safe because pressure and the body's ready for impact, it can't focus. Okay. It can't even do sometimes the breathing exercises, right? I'm always like, breathe. Sometimes it doesn't work. Okay. Because your nervous system is in such a state that it can't think. It doesn't know the rational next step. And then it goes and it just starts reacting. and it just reacts. It doesn't respond because you're not in charge of the response. It's reacting. Your physiology is reacting. And that's why, even though you know what to do, you suddenly can't seem to do it. All right? Does it make sense? Okay. So the costs of this, of being in this state, certainly of competing in this state, is large, right? We can't perform how we want. Our timing is off maybe. We don't read our dogs as well, right? Because we're not in listening mode. We're not being very observant of anyone else, let alone our dogs around us. And you might even leave events like trials and tests and shows or whatever, just completely exhausted. Because in addition to the energy that it takes to run, to compete, you're exhausting yourself with all of this other stuff that your nervous system is constantly going through. And so some of us, what's interesting is some of us have a real problem being, and I say us, you heard it, I say us, being still, because we think, oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I'm supposed to be doing something. And that's like your nervous system's addiction to always being in motion or in frenzy or in doing something. I've got to be doing something. There's so much to do. And unfortunately, the world is sort of keeps pulling us into that energy of like, there is a lot of stuff to do. Yeah, you do have to do a lot, but you also need to learn how to be fully present in the moment. If you can go pull weeds, or pick up the yard, and be zen in that moment and be only thinking about that, then great. That can be your like walking meditation or your weeding meditation, as it were. Right? But as soon as your mind starts to go to other things, or you're making mental lists, or you're anywhere else but the present moment, then you've lost the thread, if you will, right? So I believe firmly walking meditations. I no longer begrudge picking up the yard, picking up after the dogs, because it's kind of like Zen. There's kind of like nothing else to think about. And I try to just be there and be grateful for my dogs and walk around the nice yard and pick up and put away and all that. Okay. But the cost of this, going back to that, is, your confidence will slowly start to erode. Not because you're failing, but because your brain never can get the evidence or absorb the evidence that not only you're doing well, but that you're okay, that you're safe, that you've done enough, that showing up and competing and trying is enough. That is what it is. Okay. And so your confidence, remember, we've been talking a lot about that lately, but your confidence is only going to build when your body feels safe enough to recognize success. And for those of you who are bad at celebrating your successes, I'm going to say that again, because your confidence only builds when your body, not just your mind, your body feels safe enough to recognize the success. So where you can slow down and you can replay the moment in your mind, and you can go into that like savoring mode where you just sigh and you think about, wasn't that amazing? Like, wasn't that an amazing day? And the world pushes us forward, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. The world pushes us forward. There's always more to do, another thing, blah, blah, another class, another whatever, but make sure that you are taking time to be still and to sit and to savor and to think about nothing, then running that wonderful, maybe title run back through your brain. Okay. And thinking about it again and really sitting with it and really saying like, yeah, I did that. And I did that skill that I've been working on, or I did it well, or I went to this trial today and I, did my rituals really well, or whatever. So we have to get good at sitting still, or at least we have to devote ourselves to the practice of it, right? Going all the way back to thinking about it. Maybe it's thinking about present as more like a practice, as in sort of yoga practice and things like that. Okay. All right. So I promise it's not all going to be doom and gloom. I will give you some tools to fix this when we come back. If you love this podcast, you'll love the Q membership. Each month we tackle topics like ring nerves, confidence, and mental toughness, breaking them down into bite-sized, actionable lessons. You'll also get a private Facebook group for support and access to all of my online courses. It's like having a mindset coach in your pocket. Ready to get started? Join us. The link is in the show notes or head to theqcoach.com. Back to the episode. Okie dokie artichoke. All right. As we come back, it's no surprise that we're going to start with awareness, okay? Because a lot of us are just going through our lives this way, right? Just not really aware that this is happening, or maybe it pops up here and there and we say, I wish I could be different, but it's just my personality, and off we go running in a different direction. But you know that it's hurting you, or you know that it's hurting you maybe situationally, right? Maybe when you go to the invitational, or you go to some big event, or you haven't trialed in a long time and you go back to a trial and you feel the nerves that you thought you were over. That recently happened to me. I hadn't been karting in a while because I was in between dogs, doesn't matter. And the first time back in that draft ring, I was really more nervous than I had been previously. And it was all of this, right? Which is, of course, why I'm talking about it, because a lot of times we work on things together, things that I need to work on too. Okay, so we know we can't regulate what we don't notice. So you're just going to start building the observation. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to fix it either. Don't go jumping into solution mode like, I noticed this, now I got to fix it. Just notice, calm down. There's time for it. Okay. So ask yourself, like, how fast do I move or talk when I'm at a trial? Like, is that different than when I'm at home or different in other places? Do I ever pause and breathe and thank my dog and just take that breath before I walk into the ring? Or does that never cross my mind? Okay. How does my dog act when I'm buzzing with this sort of energy? Like, when do I notice my dog disconnect? When am I being the person at the lunch table with phone in hand, ignoring, in this case, my dog on the other side of the table, who's just fully in the present moment, phone down, staring back at me? Like, am I even noticing that? When is my dog disconnecting from me? And does it take me a nanosecond to notice that, no, my dog isn't just, quote, being bad and like going off in another direction? It was probably 2 seconds before then. They're like, I've had enough of this one. Like, I'm off. Like, this is, what is she even doing right now? Right? So I don't want you to label it. It's not good. It's not bad. I just want you to understand patterns, because for most of us, these patterns aren't all the time. Okay. Like, you might actually disconnect from your dog in class, in a group class situation, because you're socializing. Right? And we're chatting, or we're catching up, or we're celebrating somebody's, award or whatever. And we're not connected. Okay. And that might be a social reason you disconnect from your dog and you get into this excited moment. But then at a trial, it might be a trigger that gets you going. You come out of the ring and your dog is wild and you're like, oh my God, no, not that, not the wild version, and when we get triggered. So again, not good or bad. We're not labeling, we're not fixing, we're just noticing patterns. Because when you notice not only the behavior, but you notice the patterns of maybe when it's better or worse. By the way, you got to write it down. When you notice the patterns, then you can intervene, right? Then you can have like a pre sort of action that you take that cuts that off, right? You go back to the crate. You're worried your dog's going to be wild child when he gets out of the crate. Instead, you're going to stop, take a couple breaths, make sure you are not in that kind of frenetic energy, that you will calmly breathe, open the crate slowly, maybe get yourself organized first, maybe ground yourself first, and then go to open the crate, right? So if you can do that, you can put in sort of preventative measures, if you will, if you know your patterns, right? Or your triggers, okay? All right, so let's give you some tools. All right, so they're small resets. I know you can fit them in, but what I want you to, before I even give them to you, they're not magic. You've heard me talk about a lot of these things before, but the thing is I can tell that you guys aren't working them into your rituals. I know this. When I talk to you, when we do coaching, I can tell that you're not preemptively putting these into your rituals. Okay. So if you know that you get any of these, ways, examples that we've talked about or more, then you need to put something preemptive in that, kind of morning to line ritual or crate to gate, however you want to think about it. But you got to put something preventative in there. You got to put in the deep breaths. You got to put in whatever, okay, so that you can cut it off at the pass, okay? So, I talk about breathing, okay? Of course, breathing doesn't work if you're already on the edge. It will help. It actually will help, but you won't think it will, okay? Because you're fighting it. When we breathe on purpose, okay, because breathing is involuntary, right? There's a whole bunch of times a day that I don't realize I'm breathing, but thankfully I am. But when we breathe on purpose, when we take control of our breathing, when we breathe in more slowly, when we hold our breath in, then it tells our nervous system that oh, look who's in control. Because if we were running, from the bear, whatever, that we would just be breathing, but we'd be breathing faster and more shallow, and it would just be happening, but we're not thinking about breathing, we're thinking about bear, okay? In this case, when we can control our breathing, there's a whole practice devoted to breath work, okay? It tells our body that we're safe, specifically a long exhale. Okay. So don't just go, I breathed, it didn't work. This is crap. Why do I listen to this lady? Just do like a long inhale, hold it at the top, a long exhale, even past the point you think you can, keep pushing it out, that air out. Okay. And then try to hold it with your breath out. Okay. Because people who are in danger cannot do that. So that's why it's a very obvious signal to yourself, your nervous system, that you're safe, but work it in. Have part of your ritual be, take 3 breaths before I get my dog out of the crate. Take 3 breaths before I walk in the ring. And I swear, every once in a while, your brain's going to go, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. But you do. You have time to breathe. I'm just saying, you have time to breathe. Another one that is very easy, that again, you'll feel it. So I think it's interesting because your brain is saying, oh, I don't have time to breathe, or I don't have time for this one, which is just stand still, perfectly still for 5 seconds. That's 5 Mississippis. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Didn't that feel like a long time? You're probably like, yeah, Mississippi, get on with it. Go to the next one. Okay. And those of you who were like that, yeah, I know how to count to Mississippi, that's your nervous system fighting you, saying, this isn't interesting. This isn't dopamine. I'm not getting a hit from this. I'm addicted to faster, talk faster. I've already got this podcast on, 1.5 speed or whatever. I'm, talk faster, next. That's your nervous system. And that's your nervous system specifically addicted to a different pace, faster dopamine, different inputs. Okay. So that was a really good test, which I wasn't really expecting when I put this together, but that was a really good test. So if you're fighting yourself, I don't have time, I can't breathe, I can't sit still, this crazy person, what is happening? That's exactly why you need to do it. Okay. If you're resisting, what you're resisting is kind of where the answer is. Okay. The other thing is protect some sort of I'm going to call it white space or some blank space, meaning build in some quiet time before you run. Don't fill up every minute of your day, of your trial schedule, whatever. Don't fill every minute. Don't be like, oh my God, I have a class where I'm doing nothing. I should go work. Maybe you should just sit. Maybe you should go to your car and sit and listen to music, a meditation, maybe just breathe, maybe just close your eyes for 10 minutes. You can sleep, not sleep. I don't care about that, but just lock out the world and just let your nervous system have a reset. Give it a break. And especially those of you who have a run in the morning and then a really long gap before a next run in the afternoon, do a whole new reset for that second part of your day. Go back to your car, go wherever, go for a walk, go count birds. Just do something to give your nervous system a rest because it will help your energy stamina the rest of the day. Okay. And then use like I'm always saying a ritual, but like use like an action, like clipping the leash or unzipping the crate or, picking up your leash or whatever it is, and tie it to a phrase, right? Because that's how we like stack a habit. So tie it to a phrase that is just like, calm, I breathe. Or maybe every time you pick up the leash, you take a deep breath, right? Or you stand still for a second, right? So tie some things that you are already doing to these kind of new actions, if you will, so that every time you go to grab your leash, it reminds you to take a few breaths, even before you get your dog, right? Or every time you get your dog out or they're pottying, and instead of saying potty, potty, hurry, hurry, potty, potty 17 times, you're just like, you know what? I'm going to use this moment to take a few breaths because my dog's going to potty when it potties, right? So build those things in. You have to think of them as little opportunities, these micro practices and these chances to practice this. Do it at the grocery store. Do it when you're out getting gas. Do it when you're in line somewhere being annoyed. Work it in. Practice it all the time so that when you go back and you need it at a trial, it's there. Okay? So you're going to want to make progress with this because it's like everything else. You're like, type A, I got goals. I need to know. So make sure that you are adding a quick line in your like trial review, because I know you're all doing trial review at the end of the day, right? Add a quick line about your energy that day, right? So maybe it was like, this was great. Healing was great. Figure 8 was amazing today. My energy felt whatever. It felt good. It felt calm. It felt frenetic. Or maybe do it on a 1 to 10. Like my intensity was really high, or my nerves were high, or like whatever. You've got to include your energy, your mindset in your trial notes, your post notes, however you're doing that, whatever that habit is. And again, you don't have to write 6 pages, single space, double-sided. You just need to write a couple words or maybe a number. Maybe put it on a number. I'm feeling 4 today. I'm feeling 11 today, like whatever it is, because turning that awareness into data will then become confidence because you'll start to see the progress and you'll start to understand the things that you did during the day to help you and support you in this. Okay. You'll see patterns, right? Use the planner. Hello. I designed it just for us. Okay. And the 2026 one is out. So do all of that. Okay. When I was talking to this person on the phone when we were doing a coaching session about being frenetic, one of the things we really talked about is the fact of like, you have to understand like the ramifications of this, but then also the progress. And in doing that, you have to mine the things you did well that day and that got you to a good space so you can do them again. We're so focused on looking at the negative, what happened, bad, that we forget to look at like all the good so that we can do the good things again. We take for granted that, oh, we did it right, I'll just do it right again. Will you? Are you sure? Write it down. Okay? All right. So if your brain feels like your smoothie in the morning on high speed, then just start by noticing it, by taking this as a practice, by realizing the ramifications that it's having on your performance and your dogs, and just treat it with the same importance as you do some of your other skills. Okay. Because I promise you, in that sort of lunch analogy, you're sitting there on your phone, your dog is on the other side of the table. Like they're practicing being in the present moment. They're waiting for you to tune in with them. And at a point, they're going to get up and leave the table. Okay. All right. So if you're not going to do it for them, or for yourself, rather, do it for them. Okay. Because being present is not a luxury. It is not something that other people have and you don't. It is a performance skill that is badly needed. And, watch a trial and watch everybody else walk in and out of the ring, and watch those elite handlers that you respect so much, and watch what their energy is and what they're doing, and notice how present they are, and strive to be like that, not just in skill level, but in energy. Okay. All right. That's all my frenzied energy for you today on that. And with that, no matter what you're up to this week, I hope you have a fantastic time with your dogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner workbook and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details, or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at theqcoach and let me know how it's going. Finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks, and have a great week with your dogs.